Hey everyone, hope everything is going well. Today we have a new guest. He is Phil from the YouTube channel Philmington. And the first time I ever heard of Phil was actually when he was doing a live stream. I think it was with Neo and maybe Flipping Steve. And then I dropped in some of that pump and dump talk. And yeah, that's the first time I heard about you. So, Phil, welcome.
Thanks, Rahul. Appreciate you having me on. And that's actually, it's mutual. That night was the first time I'd heard of you. And then I think I had watched your video the next day and you were like, yeah, this guy Philmington was also on. I don't watch his channel. I don't know who he is. So yeah, that's how I learned about you as well. So I've been doing YouTube for about 4 years now. And so pre-pandemic, and I've been collecting since like 2014. That's when I got back into it. Like a lot of us collected in the 90s as well.
Right. So let me ask you this before I get into what you do, collecting, speculating, etc. I never saw you during the pandemic on YouTube, like 2020, the hype, and I was shocked. Like I said, I found you on Neo's channel sometime. Was it this year, last year? I don't remember. Maybe this year. And I'm just surprised. I never heard of you, and you have like a huge channel. So I'm just surprised that the algorithm never promoted me to your channel. It was always Dustin, Sports Card Live, and then there was other channels as well, Sports Card Investor. So it's just quite interesting. I would never
Yeah,
found you.
there's probably a good reason for that. In 2019, that's probably when I sort of peaked a little bit, and not just like analytics, but also regular content. 2 to 3, sometimes like 4 to 5 times a week. Also, there were just fewer creators around. But 2020 was a tough year for me, balancing a lot of different things with the baby, and also I started to kind of move a little bit away from baseball, and I started to dabble a bit in the basketball and football space. And of course, like at the time, sentiment was super high in the hobby. I didn't feel like I had a whole lot of insights to share, and there was a lot of content that was being pushed out that I didn't really agree with. But one of the reasons why I didn't make content myself was because I was picking up a lot of like football cards, basketball cards, and I've always been a guy that I like to have like pretty, you know, I like to have like pretty well-rounded or eloquent commentary around what I'm picking up and why. And I felt like being new to LeBron and Brady, not so much the athletes, but the cards. It's like, what can I really add? So in hindsight, it was probably good that I didn't push some of these ideas, or even if it was indirectly, lead people to buy certain cards at the peak. Although I was able to share some of those cards on Instagram. But yeah, I got back into creating regular content. And for me, regular is not every day. It's like twice a week. I started to do that probably midway through this year. So even though I've got a decent amount of followers, a lot of those folks are probably out of collecting at this point. Some of those probably passed away. Actually, I know a few of them did. So there could be quite a few like dead subscribers in the literal sense and figurative sense as well.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I remember some people used to comment on my videos all the time, and I don't think they unsubscribed. And I just don't see them commenting on anyone's videos now. So I'm just wondering, like, are you still alive, bro?
Yeah, like go back to one of your bigger videos when and I didn't know you back then, but I was able to rewatch the video that you did during just pretty much the peak March, right, of Top Shot. I almost forgot the name.
Yeah,
That's been
one of
brought
them
up
was
such a long
Top
time.
Shot. Yeah.
Read your comments and try to see if you can find those viewers. Like, are they actually active today? So I'll go back and I'll look at some of my most popular videos from 2019. 10,000 views on some of the videos where I did like a speculation series before everybody else started to sell, not sell picks, but push certain cards. Of course, I did it with the right amount of disclosures. And I know you and I are kind of aligned in that regard, talking about like, well, what's your incentive? How much do you own? Be clear about what's fact, what's opinion, and the risk factors. Articulate your argument for why that card. There's been people that has pushed certain cards. But anyways, yeah, back to that. A lot of those viewers certainly aren't still there with me. And I hope it's not because I fell off. I hope it's because of other reasons that they've sort of drifted away from YouTube.
Gotcha. Let's take a look at some of the comments. The comment section is on fire today. All right. Rick Hoops, checking 1, 2, 3. CNT Collectibles. You never heard of this guy? All right. Chris, hello all. Hey, everyone. Will, and it was love at first sight. Paul says, hey, everyone. We don't know you, Phil, so no hanky-panky. Laugh out loud. Chrissy says, how are you guys? I'm doing well. Ziggy, what's going on, my man? Let's look at, oh, Neo's in the chat. What's going on, man? Geez, Philmington getting dark. Dead followers. All right, I'll get to some of the other comments later on. So what about your collecting background? You said you collected in the 90s. What did you collect back then as a kid? Or maybe
All baseball.
all baseball.
So between 87 to 93, Topps, Fleer, Score, all the main brands. Back then I couldn't afford packs of 89 Upper Deck, even though they printed like was rumored around to like 3 million, plus or minus a million or so. 3 million of each of those cards, and perhaps more of just the sheets of the Griffey card. I still couldn't afford a 89 Upper Deck pack. So the colluding definitely worked out between all those hobby shops that set the prices at $2 a pack or whatever they were back then. So Griffey was my my main PC. At one point I had over 100 different, and for me that was a big deal, different like singles of his cards. Most of those were in Mariners jerseys. I picked up a few in the early 2000s, but like a lot of people, I sort of drifted away. I'm 38 years old, so I went to college early 2000s, and I didn't even realize sports cards were still a thing till early 2010s, 2011, 2012. I work for a consulting firm. I still do. And I was on the road a lot. And I'm like, I kind of want a hobby. What can I do from the hotel that'd be fun? Like, that's not like super destructive, like online gambling, like spinning the video roulette wheel where odds are stacked against you. So I started to pick up like some used video games for a few months. And then I'm like, you know what? Let's check out these cards. And it was Alex Bregman. Well, I was making a lot of mistakes in 2014 when I got back into it, and I have a fantasy baseball background, so I'm like, oh, I can probably use my expertise here in finding like the undervalued players. And when you start to do that, you start to make a lot of mistakes because it's not the most popular players in the hobby aren't necessarily going to be like the top 10 through 20 guys you pick in fantasy baseball. Stolen bases, pitchers, or certain traits that are definitely overvalued in the hobby game. So Jose Fernandez was one of the guys that I was going after, and obviously that didn't work out. But I did make some money flipping some of his cards, and then eventually I got more into Bowman Chrome. At the time, social media was maybe it was happening on maybe Instagram. There was something there. I didn't realize Instagram was a thing till I ran into Santiago Sports in 2019, and he's like, "Yeah, this is me," and I have like a follower base, and I'm like, "Oh, can you write down your name?" Because I don't have Instagram, and he's like, he gives me that look like, oh. And then I realized like, oh shit, that's Santiago Sports. I did a trade with him like years later. I found out who he was. But anyways, yeah, back in 2014, it was all blowout forums. That was my only way to connect with people. In 2018, YouTube made it like a really sticky thing. And then it was Juan Soto and Acuna that made me really get into it. I'm like, I like these guys. I liked Bregman a bit in 2016, but these guys, I don't know, there could be some opportunity to make some money here. And I really like Soto's game. And over the years, I've become more invested in him kind of as a player, like emotionally too. And yeah, that's what pulled me back in. And I think social media is like the glue that's keeping me in the game. And now I've got the Instagram and all that stuff. But with YouTube back in 2018, and not a lot of people know this, and there's a lot of people that were on YouTube like 4 or 5 years earlier. It was a pretty big, like, well-knit community. A lot of these guys, primary collectors. My circle, my echo chamber on YouTube were the baseball people, and maybe that was just more dominant anyways. But people sending care packages to one another. You open up a care package, and people doing like kind of contests. That was very popular. So, it's like a 100 or 500 subscriber giveaway, because back then very few channels had more than 1,000 subscribers. And then everybody would do a response, and the theme could be like Mount Sportsmore, like name your top 4 favorite athletes of all time and explain why. And they do like a randomizer, and they pick something and give away something small. So yeah, that was really cool. Silver Jackify, I won a couple of his contests when I had like 12 subscribers. And at the time he was like, do you even have a channel? But yeah, not to ramble, but that's a little bit about my background.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's look at some other comments here. Steve Splendid says, dead subscribers, almost like elections. All right. Jess Man Sports. Hello, everyone. What's going on? Here's a question from Will. Do you think Acuna is going to bounce back again this year?
Uh, yeah, he might. Didn't really show too much this past year because, of course, recovering from that ACL tear. So I guess it would be expected that his power was sapped. But like he he didn't really show the plate discipline. He showed us spurts of that in the past in like 2020 when it seemed like he was putting everything together, and in 2021 as well before he went down. The issue with me and Acuna is, well, I've got a lot of wax. This is only like, this is less than 1% of it. So I've got a warehouse. I've got a lot of 2018 Topps updates. So because of Soto, and I've got some Otani exposure with that. So I already have a lot of Acuna exposure. I sold like a pretty big card of Acuna recently. I don't know if he matches the type of person that I want to invest in. So if you look at some of his maybe character qualities, I there's certain other young players, there's so many to choose from where it's like not that, I think it was Fernando Tatis. I think he kind of showed me like, okay, there were probably some warning signs there. He probably wasn't mature for his age. Maybe he's not ready for the big stage. Maybe he's not taking this seriously. And with Acuna, with some of the stuff we've kind of heard from the clubhouse and the way that they performed with him on the field versus off the field gives me some question with him. And if he doesn't like bounce back in a big way this coming year, then I think, people have short-term memories in this game. There's already a lot of scared money in his cards too. And people are just kind of waiting for like a hot streak of 1 or 2 months before they just dump. That's going to put a lot of pressure on his cards too. So if scared money is a thing, like it kind of was with Luis Robert, it probably still is. Probably still a lot of bag holders with him. Yeah, Acuna is not a guy that I'm going to buy any more of. So if anything, he's a hold or sell, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're out in Chicago. Even though I'm not a White Sox fan, I speculated a little bit in Lou Bob as what's his name? Neo always calls him Lou Bob, and then there's also that other dude on the White Sox, Eloy
Yeah.
Jimenez. Yeah, the Cubs traded him for Quintana. So yeah. But anyways, I see this a comment, Sports Reckoning. He says Buffalo Bills player hurt really bad, given CPR in the field. Looks like he died. Let's hope they save him. Yeah, I just saw that on Google. Hopefully, this individual's okay. And I also saw that Uche Waneri, a dude I used to watch on YouTube. He passed away, so that's just messed up.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know. He's like what your age, 38, and as a kid, so it's crazy. Really,
So good. Oh, by the way, Reckoning just posted a video like an hour ago. Have you seen it
Oh
yet?
yeah, I did. I can't dance, so that's all I'm gonna say to that. All right, let's look at that. Someone sent me that video, by the way. Elegant Elliot, MTG Lion is roasting Jeff Wilson on a daily basis. It's great. Yeah, I guess he pissed him off too much, and he's swinging for the fences now. All right, let's take a look at some of the topics we wanted to get into today. So you had a conversation with an IRS agent, is that correct? That's what you sent me a message?
Oh, yeah. So a little background for me. I don't work in tax or in accounting. Rahul, sorry. I don't know if
Yeah.
you know that about me. So I don't have a CPA or anything like that. My
Okay.
dad did work for IRS for the IRS for at least 30 years, and he retired as a grade 13 or something, revenue agent, auditor. So he's given me a little bit of a background, and in college I majored in finance. So I took a few accounting classes, and I've had an LLC since 2019, and I've worked with a couple different tax professionals. One's with a CPA. So I have a little like baseline knowledge of tax and of the right way to do things, and what a lot of people do versus what a lot of people should do, I guess. So I had a chance in 2020. It was like a COVID wedding where they're only like just like the bridal party showed up, and I didn't know the other guy in the that was a groomsman, and he was a CI, so a criminal investigator for the IRS. And I was just having a conversation with him, and he was saying that one of the issues right now with the IRS, or in his opinion, it's an issue, is that influencers are deducting, like they could go on an exotic trip and they could just record a few videos while they're there or upload something on Instagram, and if they have a business and if it's for a business reason, if they're saying that, then they can expense that trip. And with that comes other things that you can expense, so if you're doing this whole like yacht trip or your yacht ride, you could actually expense like your trip if you're like flying there and maybe meals and other stuff too. But he's saying that a lot of people are taking advantage of it and the IRS doesn't have a solution. So it makes me think of some people in the hobby that are they're traveling a lot, like going to different shows, and obviously that's a business expense. But are they bending that a little bit? Are they going out to like steak houses? And you could think of the ways that people could kind of manipulate the situation. If all right, let's go to say if there's like 12 of these kids that are all at a high end steakhouse, they all take pictures of the receipt. They all submit the receipt, like the whole amount, not just their part, right? It's possible. And what this guy was saying was like, you got to be responsible. Like if you spend like $40,000 on like a yacht trip and your revenues are here, you probably want to expense like a portion of it, not the whole thing. So, but I thought it was interesting. Do you have any thoughts on that or?
I'm just thinking how many of these guys have gone to the strip club and using receipts from the strip club, trying to expense that. That was my first thought. But in all seriousness, yeah, I don't know how the IRS could clamp down on this. Are they going to say like, you got drinks at the bar, so we're not going to count this as an expense? We're not going to count you going on a trip. I don't know if you're in Chicago to the Willis Towers before it was a Sears Tower, and you can't count that as an expense. I'm not a CPA, and I haven't worked with the IRS, but if it's not an expense, then that should definitely not be there, as an expense, obviously. So are they just going to say, okay, this is now your income. You can't take that $5,000. That needs to be reported as income. I mean, we'd have to have a tax person from the IRS discuss that. But then how many people are they auditing? They're going to audit from
Right.
YouTube. I mean, are they going to go through Sasha T's, expense line by line, or Card Collector 2, or any of these other influencers? That's just my thought process. I don't know what you have to say on that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think a lot of it comes down to anything egregious that they can spot. I mean, you know probably more about this than I do, but like, does they do a quick sniff test of some of the numbers and Card Collector 2? I don't know what he does in revenues, but that'll certainly put him in the give him a little bit more exposure, maybe into the spotlight more than I'd say even a Sasha T. So Card Collector 2's got all these different like revenue streams, and most of which are legitimate. He seems like a decent guy to me. I haven't met him in person, but I know obviously with the Marks Cards thing, you've covered that. But yeah, like over $1 million in revenues easily with him and his entire operation per year, I'd say, at least in the probably 2019 through 2021. And he's not a guy that I see like, at least in his videos, doing like lavish things. But I was trying to spin it a little bit differently when I was talking to this guy, and I was like, so what if I've got a YouTube channel. So do you, Rahul. What if we were to take our families to Europe and make a video while we were there? And I mean, it's not really for business, but it's for business if we make a video. So I don't know if you don't meet Kevin, the YouTuber, personal finance guy, 1.8 million followers.
No.
Yeah, he's all over the place, and he's always doing videos from like Disney World and Mexico, and he's expensing the entire thing. So then you wonder, like, is he expensing all meals too? Is he expensing the flights of his family too? Like, is that acceptable? Because I don't know if I'd go that far. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna have what, 80,000 more IRS agents, so they're
Right.
probably gonna go after the rich first. But then eventually, if they hire more, they're gonna go after the middle class. So that's just the way I see it. And the collectibles market boomed like crazy, so I wouldn't be surprised if they just go after the influencers on, social media. But we shall see. We shall see. All right, let's take a look at some of the other comments. So it looks like the game is suspended. I was watching before I got on live with you. I really wanted to see that. And now maybe the player died. That's messed up. I don't remember a player dying recent history. Do you? In any game? Any sport?
No. There was a Bills player I think his last name was either Everett or Everest. He ended up paralyzed from a hit he took, maybe on like a kickoff return or something. Yeah, I don't recall much. There's been some serious injuries in hockey, but hockey and football would be the two. But I don't know if I recall like a death on the field.
Maybe in boxing, someone knocks someone out. I've heard something like that, but Ryan McClanahan says, I see a lot of sports card audits with those 86,000 new IRS agents. And remember, with half of the country not paying taxes and a lower population, Uncle Sam needs more revenue sources. Yep, definitely.
Yeah,
Especially.
they make it seem like they're going after the rich. The rich don't need to evade taxes because they have loopholes. They don't need to cheat on their taxes. 100% they're going after the other 99%, which is unfortunate. And in Massachusetts, we've always had the $600 rule, anyways, or since I can remember. So the 1099 thing, it's not going to be something that will be new to me, and I'm way over 20,000, anyways. But
is that only?
Yeah, I feel for people. Like, part of me is like, you know what, you should have been doing the right thing the whole time. But I'm like, yeah, this isn't right. Like, and there's a lot of people that are going to lose money, and it's in a year where just the market was down. So it's like very few people made money anyways, and you're stealing money from these people. It's just like a wealth shift to the IRS, the government.
No, but I think they canceled it for this year.
Yeah,
or for 2022.
they did.
Yeah,
so I'm happy about that.
The next year, so this year, right, 2023. So I think they're going to do it then. But yes, still, government needs the money, so they're going to come after middle class. People said that was politically motivated when I made that video, but it had nothing to do with politics. So.
Yeah, my dad. I mean, my dad would say the same. He agrees with you, and he worked for the IRS. So you think of anybody like that guy would have an unbiased opinion. If anything, it would go the other direction.
Yep. So I know the other topic you wanted to mention is content creation during 2020. I know you talked a little bit about it here. Do you have anything else to say about that? Like, I wasn't sure specifically what you're talking about.
Not really. We could talk about best practices a little bit for picks, but it seems like that investment type content is dwindling. At least I haven't seen it as much. I don't know how relevant it is anymore.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But yeah. So we don't have to cover that right now.
Okay. All right. You also messaged me about your thoughts on Card Ladder and Jeff Wilson, and including any biases. So your thoughts on that? You've probably seen some of my videos regarding that. If you haven't, I could refresh your memory. So, do you think there are issues with it? Because some people say, no, it's not. I obviously think there are potential conflicts of interest. So your thoughts?
Try to keep this one short, so I don't have to say anything stupid. But so Jeff Wilson, back when my channel was popular, he brought me on a couple times to talk about baseball. I had a chance to talk to him a little bit offline too. And I know there's been a lot of people that have come on your channel and said, like, listen, Jeff's a good guy. Like Andrew Goldberg, I think, said that. And I think he is a good person. I do. I mean, he's been in the spotlight for such a long time. And over the last 3 years, has anybody really caught him doing anything like outright, like 100%, like you can't debate this is right or wrong, like this is wrong, this is scummy behavior. Clearly, a lot of the content he made maybe indirectly led people to get in, I wouldn't say debt, but maybe make suboptimal decisions. But a lot of that was, these are the cards that went up. These are the top 5 from yesterday. This isn't supposed to be actionable per se. You could make it actionable if you want to, but we're not telling you to buy these cards. Maybe with some of the more like investment oriented type videos, he should have been more open about his disclosures and talked about the risk factors either involved with that player, macro level risk, any way that investment could have went wrong. But I think he's all right. The tool itself, I was, like many, offered to be an affiliate early on. This is in 2020, late 2020. And he had said, like, you could make this amount of money if you do this. And it ended up, talking to some people that have done this. They actually made like 2 or 3 times more than what he said was like the range. But
Because
for me,
people signed up through their affiliate program. Is that how
yeah,
people made money? Okay.
exactly. Yeah, and getting like renewals too. At this point, market being a little saturated. Me, if I started to do it now, probably wouldn't make as much sense. But I'm pretty picky about like what just my personality. It has to be something that I truly believe in. In a product I thought was okay. This is before I saw Card Ladder. I thought it was an okay product. I haven't used the app as much. I still use. I have a free subscription. I use Market Movers, so I use it here and there. Data history, which they've made some efforts to include more information. Going back more than just 90 days or a year. So they've been able to include more cards in their database and more baseball cards and even more vintage cards, and that's helpful. But for me, the price point of $50 back in 2020, I think that's how much it costs for most people to sign up. I didn't really think that it was worth it for a lot of people, for my average viewer. And that's when I was like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. So Card Ladder, I have a free subscription to that too. And when I started using Card Ladder, I liked it a lot. Very intuitive. It doesn't take you like 10 to 15 keystrokes to get to where you want. You can get the information quick, and it's all very seamless. You can tell like very sophisticated developers created it, and maybe that's kudos to Josh there. But I know those guys a little bit. I've talked to them a little bit at the National, especially Josh a few times. Chris, we've gotten back and forth on IG a little bit, so I have no problems with those guys. And I guess so. You're asking what I think about like any biases. I think I get a little frustrated when there's people that have like a clear lean towards one or the other, because I think both of these companies and groups of people are trying to do like the right thing probably for the hobby. They just have their own way of doing it. The Card Ladder guys have been in it for longer. They're true collectors. They can say that. And there's been some stuff that they've kind of done to each other that I don't really agree with. But yeah, they're both fine. I don't have a lean towards one or the other. I use both tools. I also use the Alt app for comps. And I was fortunate enough to be an early user of Alt back in 2020. This is long before they had the app. I know there's a ton of scrutiny around them. You've covered it on your channel probably a few times. I'm currently in the process of moving some stuff off of it and using a different vault. But their app I really like, and their technology is really solid. So nothing really bad to say about any of these people or any of their tools. And now Sports Card Investor and Market Movers, they've got the app. They've got a cheaper version, I think $20 a month. And they've made some improvements to the UI, which I didn't necessarily like. But you know what? If you like querying huge data sets and doing stuff to it, each one has a different way to filter and cleanse data. Neither one's right. I also have a membership to Card Hedger. We won't talk about that one though. But
oh yeah, okay. I think Omar from Retro Hoops Collectible is he's a sponsor of it, and
yeah,
I did a video recording with him one time, so he says good things about that. On that, I haven't used that app, so I can't say anything about it. I mean, I have seen the free version of Market Movers and Card Ladder, so it is what it is. Now, in terms of potential conflicts of interest, if you don't want to touch base on it, that's fine. Just my observations on it is they're starting to get some indexes out there for Market Movers, and there's the Star Wars index, and
okay,
my boy Dan, great curator, I think he has some of the cards that he may own in that index. So is that a potential conflict of interest? Maybe not from a materiality point of view, but down the road it could. So I think that's where they probably will need more disclosures in the future. And
yeah. From an index perspective, sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
Sorry, I forgot that's what we were going to cover as well. But
yeah,
the whole great curator thing, I know you've got your issues with them.
I have issues
but
with a
you've
lot
tried
of
to
people.
stay. You've tried to stay like pretty unbiased, which is why I'm here.
Yeah.
You're not going on seek and destroy missions per se. So the decision to use him to create the Star Wars index, if he truly is the expert, that's probably fine. I think that if Jeff Wilson and their team did it themselves, I would rather have like an independent party that's creating the index than within the organization.
I agree.
And I think that if you have to disclose your selection rules, So whether it's great curator or if it's like a systematic approach, even better. Either way, there's going to be some subjectivity. Even if it's a systematic approach, somebody had to decide what that approach was. So like, disclose your rules for picking who you did to be in there. Disclose what type of index is it? Is it market cap weighted or is it like equal weighted? Disclose how often you plan on revisiting the constituents of that index and what the process is to add and delete. So one of the knocks of Card Ladder was that, in my opinion, they didn't have that many indices to start, and I think they added a bunch this year. Maybe that was when they took on all that sales history and they added that as a new kind of feature. They didn't mislead because you could click into each of the indexes to understand what's in low end versus mid end versus high end, but what they had in each of those indices wasn't really representative of like an average person's collection. So low end to me, it, I would have liked something that didn't have any 90s stuff. And now I think they have an ultra modern index. So they added that, but it's like a little too late in my opinion. They could have done that earlier. And maybe it was just a matter of for them getting data histories. So not just getting cards in the tool, but also data histories going back more than a year. I don't even know what Card Ladder's got a lot of stuff like all time history, which is really impressive. And for me, that's helpful. I remember somebody commenting on one of my videos from 2020 when I was talking about the issues of data history. And they were like, who cares about what happened before the pandemic? It was a weird time back then, and none of that matters anymore. It's like, well, now we're in 2023, and now prices are back to pre-pandemic. So does that history matter now? Like, to me, it does. To me, it's just as important as what happened in 2020, 2021. So, and also if you're trading thinly traded or illiquid cards, low pop stuff that doesn't sell a whole lot, like for me, I need to go back further than a year. That was always an issue. But yeah, the whole indexing thing, like, I don't know if Sports Card Investor, if they plan on doing something similar for baseball. They probably already have one, but it would be cool if they had like Scotty B, Philmington, like you guys, let's work on like an approach for you guys to create an index for market movers. To me, that'd be pretty cool to get other people incorporated that think they're experts and might not be. And these people disclose, these are I want to say securities, but these are the cards that we picked for these reasons. And that's disclosed, and maybe that's vetted and approved by a teapot who also knows a bit about baseball. But ultimately, it's independently created.
Yeah, I think Teapot blocked me without me ever talking to him, but that's a topic for another day. But let's take a look at some of the comments here. Let's look at this. Step in the box. Hey, what's going on, man? Have you watched this content? Oh yeah, you do.
Yeah, Brett. Is that Brett Cummins-Cioli, or he's the guy that rips all the update hangers? That's the same guy, right?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. I subscribe. He has a guy I met at the National on a lot who's actually a professional eater. They do like a show together.
Interesting. I did not know that. Interesting. All right. Okay. Mangini is in the house. What's going on? Two of my favorite people. Philmington does the hanky panky. I think, John, you need to come on one of these days if you're interested.
He would. He definitely would. He's a good guy.
Yeah. His collection is probably one of the best out there on YouTube, I could say. I don't know if have you seen any collection that's better than anyone's? Because I think he has the best on YouTube.
Well, that's hard. There's a few guys on Instagram that don't
post
not
Instagram,
lot,
on YouTube.
On YouTube. Yeah, he's up there for sure. I don't I'm not a vintage expert, especially the non-graded stuff. I know he does a lot of stuff outside of slabs, and he does a lot of rare stuff too. So Blue Jacket 66. You know him?
No. Oh yeah, I think one time Sports Card Radio shared his video one time regarding PWCC, but that's the only time I've heard of him.
Yeah. So he's up there for sure. He's the one that comments on a lot of breakout card stuff, saying like, well, that's not really rare. I know what rare is. Rare is when there's like 3 in the world, and he has one of them.
Gotcha. I think that P. Ryan collection on Instagram has one of the best collections regarding sports cards. I mean, there may be other people, but the one that I like is P. Ryan's. I don't know. Who do you like on Instagram? Who do you think has one of the best collections out there? There could be a lot. Maybe I haven't seen their channel. I'm not that too much an IG guy.
Yeah, so well, maybe I shouldn't mention his name, but
Oh, okay. If
uh,
you don't want to.
well, obviously Shine 150,
Oh, okay.
but
You can say
everybody, yeah,
whatever.
that's an easy one, low hanging fruit. Be caught something's at like a big Soto collection and trout. Blue
Okay.
Horseshoe is another one. Blue is spelled like BLEW. Uh, yeah, Super Trout 27, big like Mbappe Trout. I think he still has Trout and Serena Williams. I think.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot to name for sure. There's a lot of high end cards.
Okay. MLB Cards Australia. Hey, my two favorite YouTubers live. Philmington comparing Arenado to Machado. Shouldn't their PSA 10 prices be much more similar than they are? Do you think Manny Machado has more room for growth?
Yeah, if you're simply to just look at WAR by itself, so Arenado, Machado, and Harper are all like similar in age, and they all have similar trajectories. Um, you know, Arenado has a lot more hardware versus Harper's got two MVPs, but outside from that, he's got a lot of seasons where he finished outside the top 10, 15. So probably a lot of all-star games. Obviously, Machado's got like 10 gold gloves or something. Not 10, but like 7 or 8 or something. Maybe 10, actually. But the difference between Arenado and Machado is likability. That's a big thing. And Machado is slowly rebuilding his reputation. And I'm actually more tolerant towards what he's done in the past with like Dustin Pedroia, cleats up, like arguably ruined his career. His knees probably weren't good anyways, weren't going to last that much longer. But Machado, the Charlie Hustle comment, I'm never going to be the Charlie Hustle, doesn't mean he's never going to try. He's just never going to stand out for being like a Rudy type, not Alpha Investments, but the guy from the movie. So I know a lot of people are talking about Alpha these days, but I think Machado, I think he has the potential to fully turn around his reputation. I think he's starting to. And a lot of people are forgetting how great he is. He's had a lot of great seasons, and he's still in his prime. So I think he could over time. WAR takes into account defense, and Arenado gets knocked for being in Colorado for as long as he was. So if you just look at their numbers and factoring in the gold gloves, you'll be like, well, Arenado's way better, but he gets knocked down with that WAR. It's ballpark adjusted. So that's a reason why maybe he's down where he is. He could be even higher from a WAR perspective. But yeah, in time, maybe the gap narrows, or maybe they're both undervalued.
Arenado's how old? What 33, 34?
He debuted in 2013, so probably around 30s, 30, 31 maybe.
Okay. All right. Step into boxes, loving the show. Well, thanks for watching. And hopefully we'll bump into each other at Chicago again or Rosemont. The show there. Chrissy says, Phil, do you think 2022 update can be as big as 2018? So many key rookies that have potential.
Yeah. Well, not but I've thought about that. And it's obviously, it was printed a bit more than 2018. It's printed about the same as 2021, which I believe was printed quite a bit more than 2018. So you have to think about that. In 18 update, I mean, that was selling for almost $1,000 in a hobby box. Now it's back down to like $550. So I would say it would be a huge win if 2022 update could even sell for a third. So if 2022 update sold for like 200 or 170, and if 18 update at that point was still like under 600, I think that would be a huge win. I don't think it'll be as good as 2022 update, especially with what Ohtani's done the last 2 seasons. Soto's shown us a whole lot more than like, J-Rod shown us at this point. And it's the other guys. I don't feel very, and I know Witt, a lot of people will say that Bobby Witt Jr. got rushed into the league and that's why he struggled as much as he did. No, he still put up like decent amount of stolen bases, but he really wasn't there defensively either. Torkelson looked terrible, but still super young. Jeremy Pena debuted at age 24, I think, and now he's 25. People are going to remember his postseason, I guess, but he needs to do better in the regular season. He put up a 5 WAR. Okay, he needs to continue to do what he did last year. Basically, he needs to do it for a few more years, as he did debut at a little bit older of an age. I don't think being in Houston is as much of a detriment as it was to those that were actually part of that scandal in 2017. But then who else is in the product? Royce Lewis, Spencer Strider, CJ Abrams. We'll see. I mean, it's still super early, but 2019 update was pretty deep when it came out. So 2019 update had Kevin Biggio, it had Nick Senzel, Keston Hira, Will Smith. Most of those guys have faded away into the oblivion. Will Smith's a catcher. He's been pretty good, but the other guys, like most of these guys, are going to fade. Of Royce Lewis, CJ Abrams, and Seiya Suzuki, most likely 2, if not 3 of those guys will be a hobby nothing in 5 years. So I mean, keep your eye on J-Rod. He's gonna lead the product. He's gonna have to. Wander debuts in there. That could be good. Parallels as well. So I like the product. I do. And I'm going to try to buy more of it, especially if it stays at current prices. But there's a lot of other stuff I like right now. Some Bowman stuff from this past year.
Okay. You don't have to answer this, Phil. I'll just answer this. Do you think Jeff Wilson will be suing more people this year? No, I don't think so. Especially with MTG Line and all that fallout. Collector's dream. Are we going into a new junk wax and now junk slab era? Phil.
Yeah, you know, I looked at an old video of mine, and you actually inspired me to do so, AIH. How, like, you were kind of calling that there was going to be a crash coming. And in 2021 or in 2020, you had said that. And I went back and I looked at some of my old videos where I did make content and where I talked about this. And the junk slabs were the impetus for me for a crash to come. And that was one part of it. Overprinting and Fed policy, you know, that's your standpoint as being like the main reason, and stimulus money and that kind of going away. But yeah, the junk slabs, I think it's helpful that this is kind of happening at the same time. So this reset, hopefully, is going to allow people to be smarter about what they send in. And base cards are back to being, I won't say base cards are not relevant anymore, because for collectors they will be. I'll just say that they're not going to be sought after. They're not going to sell for exorbitant prices. They shouldn't. They never should have. And they probably won't for a very, very long time, maybe never again. Except for, you know, going back to like kind of limited pop years. So I'm mainly talking about like the last 2 or 3. So hopefully we're passing that. Now, I made a video recently about like a return to normal at some point, and a lot of people are like, what do you mean? Like, we're still crashing, and 2023 is still going to be a year where we continue to crash. Maybe we do. But I start to think about, like, is this the 20 to 30 year cycle of collectibles where we're not going to have a true boom for another, you know, look at the 90s, look at 2017 through 2021, and we're going to have to wait 30 years till that happens? Or is it just more a matter of we're going to, I think this is like kind of where your head is at. Is it really just like Fed policy? Is it like interest rates, tips? I know you talk about that and how you think that will move where the tips moves, which is really where the monetary policy goes, right? Where the Fed goes, where cryptocurrency goes. Are we going to continue to be correlated with cryptocurrency like we were for the better part of the last few years? It'll be interesting to see. And how much can Fanatics do to help or hurt that?
Right.
You'd think that with this whole reset, print runs would go down. But a lot of people have said to me, like, well, how are they going to grow the hobby if print runs go down? It's like, well, chicken or the egg, right? You know, you need the demand for the cards to be there. Are you going to create the cards for the demand to be there, or wait for the demand and then create the cards to match that? I hope they wait for some demand, or they look at last 3 months of demand before they make decisions on, you know, finalizing print runs for the next 3 to 6 months. But that could be a problem. And there's ways that they can offset that a little bit too, with introducing new products for different types of demographics and introducing products in new regions maybe. And then, you know, a lot of people have said like they could just like overprint retail. I know Ziggy's talked about this. If he's following, like, people that buy retail, like, they're not stupid. They know that retail is garbage when it's garbage. They want valuable cards too. You know, just because they don't want to pay like more than $20 to $50 for a product, you know, they don't want just a bunch of junk in return and zero ROI. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with prints, with products, and kind of in this current market environment, which is evolving surely but slowly.
Yeah, that makes sense. The question originally was a junk slab era, and I looked at the Fed from what, 1987 when the boom started. So this is what the crash of 87. I think they were lowering interest rates all the way till what, 1994, where they had like a huge bond crash. So they had like interest rates go from like 2%, I think, to like 5%. And then also the baseball strike happened. So then the demand fell off, and then the Fed policy. And then I'm looking at it right now where, okay, this year, or not this year, last year, they raised rates from basically zero to what, close to 4%. So that killed the market. That killed all sorts of markets. So if they just loosen up the policy, I don't think it's going to be exactly like the 90s, but there are some parallels where I think there's going to be many hobby shops that go under because now we have Fanatics coming in. I don't know if you watched this video that I did where history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And I talked about, hey, when Fanatics comes in, all these small shops are going to get clobbered and eventually we'll come back. But I think that's how I saw it there. But
it's weird. Yeah, it's weird to see what they're doing. Right now, they're increasing factory cost on a lot of products. I was talking to Baubles and Ball Cards a little bit about this. So I have access to a website that shows me factory cost of everything. And I'm buying cases of this stuff 2 weeks after release for under factory cost. So I reached out to Mike Giuseppe, Sports Cards and Nonsense guy. I've been on his podcast actually recently. They bashed me for my Wi-Fi. It was terrible, but too much of a lag, I guess. But I was like, are these guys all taking a bath that are buying this stuff direct, or are they getting this stuff cheaper? And he's saying like more than half these guys are taking a bath. And I said, like, why are they doing it? And he's like, well, these aren't particularly good products, like Topps Chrome Update. That was a big flop. Usually that would have been good. Topps Chrome Black, Topps Stadium Club, Topps Heritage High Number. These are some of the products in Heritage Minor League that are selling at or below factory cost right now, just after release. And he's like, well, they're probably trying to free up money to buy some of the more sought after products like Bowman Draft. But yeah, a lot of those guys are just trying to break even on some of the stuff. And I'm like, ooh. So that continues to happen. Like you see these programs that Fanatics is doing to help. I see it as like a stimulus program for hobby shops to keep them alive and to help, Topps Chrome get opened. The MVP buyback program with the cards of Goldschmidt and Judge, and then you see them also at the same time increasing factory costs on stuff, making it hard for them to get it and to get like enough of it that they need. It's continually been cut over the last like 3 or 4 years. So most of the guys I talk to, I've actually talked to a few people that are getting more, but they're more like younger folks that have like a social media following. I don't know if there's some sort of connection there, but it seems like Fanatics is going to be very picky with who they want to partner with. Yeah, I would not want to open an LCS right now, or I would not want to be in a position where I had opened one in 2022. I think a lot of it comes down to like location as well as allocation. Here, there are too many that have popped up. So a lot of people are like, oh, Phil, do you want to open up a hobby shop? I've been approached a bunch of different times. I'm like, no, man. Like, first of all, I think our visions are a little bit different. Second of all, I just don't think this is a great long-term play.
Good points. All righty. So the baseball free agent season, I did want to talk to you about this. Correa. So what's going on with him? Have you been following? Is he not going to be a Met now?
I think they're trying to work on a solution quickly. So I think it's like his bottom right leg or something that he hurt a few years back and he had to get like surgically fixed. Scott Boras says that there's no issue with him, no health issue with him at all.
Mr. Snake Oil Salesman there.
Yeah. Talking to C&T Collectibles, he actually brought up an insight to me today. He thinks that, so we're seeing a lot of not just big contracts, but long contracts. And he's saying that higher interest rates today make it more conducive for an environment where they're giving out these long contracts. So Correa, $325 million for 12 years. So just over 25 million a year, 30, we're 27 and a half. I don't know what that is, but maybe giving him that instead of like 35 million across 7 or 8 years. The reason for that is because then they can take the amount they're saving this year, and then invest that in a higher interest rate environment. So thought that was interesting because in low interest rate environments, you also want to kind of spend more on free agents. And in high interest rate environments, they're spending more on free agents. So there's different arguments for each.
I never even looked at the interest rate perspective. That's just quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I look at baseball cards, but not contract wise. That's really interesting. So the where's Scherzer? Where is he going to be? Didn't he sign with someone else, or is he still with the Mets?
That's a good question. Did I miss that?
Like I thought, did he go somewhere? Let me look that up. Scherzer.
So DeGrom is with the Rangers now.
Okay, DeGrom. Okay, so
Yeah.
Scherzer, but then Verlander's with the Mets, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I heard a guy on a podcast recently, a flagship baseball podcast. If any of you guys, or no, sorry, that one's over. It's now the EFIS Pitch podcast. And he brought on a guest, and he was saying that teams are paying the Steve Cohen tax now. I'm like, Steve Cohen tax? What do you mean, like a luxury tax? People know that Steve Cohen's going to go like balls to the wall for almost just about any free agent. So it's almost like on eBay when you've got like a shill bidder, except he's actually going to pay, if he wins. And he's like, you know what? We already have Lindor. Let's go for Correa. They made a bid at Bogarts, I think. Like we've got a shortstop. Like, let's go for another one. Let's go for and it's causing teams to maybe overpay. I don't know how much truth to that there really is, but I thought that was interesting. So DeGrom, so Verlander short deal with the Mets, DeGrom to the Rangers. I think that was like 185 million for 5 years, 3.
It's something ridiculous, like what,
35
5 years.
Yeah, it ended up being like 35 mil a year or something like that for 5 years, maybe. So that's a pretty big contract. And for me, I'm always like a guy that's baseball, at least I pay attention to the player and their skills and accolades more than I do the market they end up with. But this is not good for his market because the Mets are like for me, the way I would quantify this, I put them as a top 3 market. Yankees, Dodgers, Mets, in my opinion, based on some factors. I did a video on this and it's got like no views, super like quantitative. It might interest you actually, nobody else. But yeah, DeGrom going to the Rangers, and also he had a lot of collectors that kind of are probably going to drift away from him now that he's going to be playing for like a last place team until they get good. They've got a decent pipeline.
Exactly. Decks full of toys. Philmington, Mr. Hanky Panky. How can you keep your composure with what's going on at Monday Night Football? I didn't even watch. I'm getting some text messages from a buddy of mine. And then, he said it's messed up. But yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah, because we don't know. Well, especially me. AIH probably knows. He's just a cold-blooded killer over there.
Yeah. So who do you think is the winner so far in free agents? Are you still more time? I mean, it's still January. So.
Yeah, some other big. So the Padres got Bogarts presumably to play shortstop. Big contract, 11 years, 285 million. My friend Nolan Alico 3. You follow him? His PSA reveals. You know what that is?
Yeah, I've heard of the channel.
He thinks maybe I'm not supposed to reveal this, but he thinks Bogarts is going to be an MVP. This is before, or not MVP, Hall of Famer. This is before I saw on Baseball Card Collector Investor Dealers channel, Chris Sewell, that he put him like middle of the pack, like 50-50, around 50-50 for Bogarts to get in. He's got the counting stats if he is to like double what he has today to get in, but he doesn't have like a whole lot of hardware between All-Star games. MVP doesn't have any MVPs. So that's an interesting one. He's got some. I'm a Red Sox fan, so his defense was always sort of something that he needed to work on. It'll be interesting to see if he actually sticks at short. Machado probably can't play short anymore. He used to. Tatis is probably today a better shortstop, but injury likelihood, I think, is the primary reason why they're moving him to left field at this point. So I think the Mets look pretty strong right now. I think the Padres look pretty good. There's most of the big names I think have already moved. Jose Abreu went to the Astros. Could be a sneaky good pickup. Short contract, still like $19.5 million a year or something. But replacing, I believe, Yuli Gurriel, who's a free agent, who they got a lot of production from similar age at this point too to Abreu. Abreu, a lot of people forget, but he won an MVP in that short COVID season.
That's right. That's right. He was with the White Sox, right? If I remember
Yep.
correctly.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Speaking of, you're in what, Massachusetts? So Red Sox fan. So me being a Cubs fan, I enjoyed seeing John Lester win one World Series for the Cubs. Now I've asked people, hey, do you think he's going to be a Hall of Famer? And now it sounds crazy because he only won a little over 200 wins, I believe, but he never was high up there in the Cy Young. I don't think he won a Cy Young. But do you think that basically with, there's an East Coast bias in terms of how, I think the voting, is there an East Coast bias? Do you think there is? Or no? Because I used to remember when I was a kid, you used to always talk about, hey, there's always an East Coast bias. And, me growing up here in the Midwest in Chicago, or not really.
Yeah, I mean, there could be. David Ortiz, first ballot. Fred McGriff got in because probably, not probably, but he was with Atlanta for a great amount of his career. No, it's certainly possible, and I probably just haven't noticed it. But a guy like Scott Rowland, he played in Philadelphia. And I'd say Bobby Abreu, who also played in Philadelphia. Some of these guys that might not get in, that are on the cusp. Todd Helton, maybe he gets in. Yeah, I don't know. It's certainly possible there's an East Coast bias. Lester doesn't strike me as a guy that's like that should be in there, but maybe the longevity of his career will get him in.
Yeah, I mean, like, he was just phenomenal in the playoffs. I always remember that. I guess it's maybe like Edelman in the playoffs for football. I mean, you're what, a Patriots fan, I assume?
Oh, I think I might switch to the Bills.
Oh,
but yeah, I'm a Patriots fan. I just they're frustrating to watch right now. I'm still a Patriots fan.
Okay. Any other topics you want to get into?
So somebody brought up above. It was a tougher question, not a softball question that you're bringing up. AIH. It was like AM from 9:42. So your time 8:42. Hey Phil, are you as confident in holding the wax you have behind you now as you were in 2020? And the answer is no. So a lot of people think, like, if you read like the blowout forums boards, that wax is going to continue to correct, and that it's late, and it's almost like there's like an arbitrage opportunity because singles have already fallen, making up a number. But ultra modern side of things, 65 75% on average across all the major sports. Wax might only be down on average 35-40%. So a lot of people think that not just new releases need to come down, but some of the older stuff does too. And I would say I would not be surprised if it went down more, but also I wouldn't be surprised if it held strong. And a lot of that has to do with the properties of wax being like a known supply, something that diminishes over time. It's driven by slightly different characteristics. And from a new release perspective, if the correction was going to happen, wouldn't you think it would correct already? Like a lot of the people on blow forums, they thought that $250 for Topps Chrome Sapphire this year was too much and it wasn't going to sell out. And that, Topps would have to be forced to remove it from their site, pretend it was sold out, and backdoor it to other like retailers for them to sell it. Well, it never showed up at retailers. It looked like it actually truly sold out, even with a slightly increased print for a product that didn't have guaranteed autographs this year. So it tells me, and looking at some of the other sports, like the people that are driven to open the cards and buy it at release, some of these people are, you could call them degenerates, people that really aren't very concerned with the ROI when they're opening it. And a lot of these people are just breakers that need it, that still have customers that have some of those tendencies where they just really want to have it at release. And hobby shops are able to move it at these prices. So I don't know. I am taking like a harder look at my inventory. So you'll see behind me, I've got some Bowman, I've got some hobby stuff. And this isn't like probably a accurate slice of what I have in my little warehouse thing. I've got a storage unit where I keep everything. So don't rob me. And most of this stuff, it's been opened anyways. These are just the empty boxes. But I looked at my inventory at the beginning of 2022. And in January, when I do my inventory, like January 1st, I had a lot of retail exposure. And I've tried to move away from that because what you notice is like if I'm on a site called DealerNet where you can buy from other dealers and brick and mortar shops. You get a lot of offers at low prices for retail stuff because they just want to move it versus hobby stuff, which people have more of a need for years later after the release. Breakers have more of a need for hobby versus retail. Um, People that are investing in the product would rather have the hobby versus retail with known hits, even if it does come with expired redemptions. So what I've done is I've tried to consolidate and try to go after like Bowman Draft, Bowman, and a lot of solid premium products over like Topps Heritage or retail. And it'll be interesting to see. I still need to do my inventory. I'll probably do it tomorrow. Like where's my balance at now? Because yeah, I was into too much retail and I'm trying to get more into the stuff I understand too, baseball. So getting back to my roots.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
But the key thing though is I'm treating it more like inventory than assets that'll appreciate. So I have customers, recurring customers. I don't just like sit on this just to sit on it. I have a way to sell it, to monetize it. And I would say that if you're gonna get into wax, like that's the right way to do it. Like Rudy Alpha Investments, he's got like 2,000 Patreons that he sells all his new releases to. Sure, he's got some stuff he's gonna sit on, but you need to have a way to convert some of this stuff into cash. At the longer it sits, the more illiquid it becomes because people generally don't want to open stuff that's like 3 or 4 years old. And I realized that when I started doing Loop. Just a harder sell and the ROI gets lower. So there's a cool quality of wax because as the supply kind of dwindles, the correlation of the wax to the underlying components, the singles within it breaks off in time and they start to go in different directions. Singles go to zero or near zero and the wax holds its value and goes up a little bit. But it's still super illiquid if you are to move it. You have to move it to the right person years later. So trying to think of it more like inventory. And with that, it's tough because a lot of the recent stuff is garbage. So again, focusing on Bowman and stuff that print run increases year to year of, I want to see 10%, 15%, 20%. I don't want to see any of these 50% stuff or 75%, like whatever Panini did in 2019, 2020. I think they did like 4X Chronicles, like the Zion year from the Luka year. Like I want to stay away from that situation. And Topps is nice because we have odds on the backs of the packs. So it gives us a better idea of what they did there.
Okay, that sounds good. I see, like you're talking about, you have a lot of wax that you potentially speculate in. Do you speculate a lot in graded cards or not too much? I mean, do you like what's your strategy for that if you're trying to monetize that? I have some strategies. I just wanted to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. I do a lot of singles. I flip those. I've got an eBay store where predominantly I'll be selling singles. Lately, my time is consumed with other stuff and treating wax more seriously. So at the beginning of 2022, I had like a 70% of my card exposure was in wax, 30% in singles, where in the previous year it was like 60% singles. So I've started to move away from speculative stuff. Even if some of these products have like multiple speculative players in them, just rather on the wax in most cases. But yeah, I still have some like bigger items. This year I tried to sell a bunch of like the stuff outside of like my top 10. Like I have a Charizard PSA 9 first edition from the base set English. I've got a Venusaur PSA 10 base set English first edition. I've got a Trout card that's a pretty big card that's down a bit this year. I've got a Giannis Silver Prism rookie. So I'm trying to be more like long-term oriented, and it's tough when you're playing the flipping game being long-term because you're in a downtrending market where even if you're right about like some sort of arbitrage opportunity, you might still lose money. If the market slips on you another 20%, that's not good. Granted, like what we saw in the past isn't indicative of what happens in the future. Still, you have to be like very wary of like the current climate. And what I see right now, AIH, is a very illiquid market with a lot of people that have you've got like 99% of the cards that exist are low end or mid end. And it takes a long time to sell these things. And every show I go to, you've got people, it's almost like a backlog of cards that are going to be sent to eBay at some point to sell. So we saw a backlog at PSA to get cards graded. Now we're seeing a backlog. People have limited time and opportunity to sell everything they have. And I think 2023 will just be like an extension of people just trying to sell stuff that they just haven't gotten around to yet. if you're seeing people posting their goals on social media, like everybody's got like sell low end stuff I don't care about. That's not PC. Sell low end to mid end stuff. Raise money by selling off the collection. It's like, and again, going to these shows, it's like I'm looking at these cases and I'm like, you should have sold this in the first quarter on eBay through auction because it would have been the only way to sell it at the time. And, you know, January's comps would have been way higher than today's comps. You know, easier to said than done. And, you know, hindsight's 2020, but I'm a little bit worried about that right now. So I was trying to get ahead of that in 2022, and I was using eBay auctions more often than I normally would have because of that.
Can you guys see me?
I see you.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. One of our internets went off.
Yeah.
Maybe it's mine. So what were you saying? Sorry.
Oh, no worries. So a few reasons why cards are illiquid, and that's causing a very slow correction and drawn out correction. First of all, it takes people a long time to sell their stuff,
right?
To liquidate their inventory, because low end to mid end stuff, a lot of what people are trying to sell right now, it comprises like 99% of the cards that exist that are out there. So it's going to take a while for people to get all those out, you know, out of their collections. And the second piece of cards being illiquid, which could lead to a long drawn out collapse, a correction or collapse, whatever, is that people are slow to get over the emotional attachment to the cards that they currently own. So it could take longer than usual to part with something like that. And also, you know, the sunk cost fallacy and just getting over the mental anguish of selling something at a loss. So I've been trying to get out in front of that. I will at some point get back more into, especially when grading prices get down, like PSA should be at $10 now. It's the $15 to $20 thing. Like I don't want to do that. Like if once they get back down to 10, I'll be more likely to do like the short-term flips more often at shows. But I'll be more selective about what I pick up because my time is a priority to me.
Indeed. So I think the cards that people are having trouble selling, I'm assuming that this must have been bought recently, because if I'm looking at cards that I bought of quality players and of decent grades in 2018, 2019, I could sell them for a profit easily if I wanted to. So I think a lot of these guys, I don't know if you agree with me, they're just underwater from the purchases in the last year or so. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, that's the case. It is. But even if I bought a card in 2017 that I bought for $1 at the time, and even though it's worth like $2 today, the fact that it was worth $3 6 months ago and $4 12 months ago, and if I feel like it's not a good long-term investment or short-term thing that I should be holding and my cash would be better spent elsewhere, I feel like that's still something I need to sell, even if I will take a small gain on it. I feel like it just feels like a bad asset. So I'm looking at my records. I've done most of my accounting for the year just without the wax inventory. And I was like, oh, damn. Like I thought I was going to take a bigger loss than I actually did throughout most of these segments. I'm like, oh, geez. I'm like, should I have been selling most of this stuff? But it's what you're saying. It's that a lot of the stuff I was selling, it felt like I was taking a huge loss, but it was just a huge like loss from the previous year. But I had actually purchased a lot of this stuff in 2018, 2019, and I'm still like even on it or a little bit above water on it. Oh, it's Hamlin that got hurt?
Yeah, I think
he a receiver?
I don't know who that guy is, but yeah, that's the name people have been throwing around. But yeah, I took a break from the game to do this, and luckily I didn't see it live. But Philmington, any other thoughts before we head off?
Not really. Let's see. Were there any other topics? Pretty much got through most of them. Rick Hoops, where was he? Do we have to block him?
No, I didn't see any comments from him. He commented at the top. He said checking 1, 2, 3. So
okay. Well, Rick Hoops would have wanted me to talk about. He owns a lot of vintage cards, superstars, rookie cards that I guess are well centered. He would want me to pump that. So this is me pumping that to stay true to myself. Content creator best practices for the school. Nah, we don't need to talk about that. I was going to make a video about that AIH, and then you talked about it the next day, and I'm like, I can't now.
What, the disclosures or whatever?
Some of
I
these,
talk about disclosures all the time. Yeah.
yeah, some of yeah, some of these ideas I have, they're just not very strong for like one video. Where you can, because you make the daily stuff, I've got like a weekly rotation, and if I talk about something like that, then it just takes away from other stuff. If it's just going to be like a 5 to 7 minute video, and my audience isn't the same as yours, or they don't expect that. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I say whatever I want, and yeah, I know you're a little more careful than what I say, but it
yeah.
is
We have different different
delivery
personal
fast.
interests, which is
Yeah, that's
part of
true.
it. I've got like some money in the game, so
Yeah,
and
I understand. I get it. I'm not hating on you.
I bash wax, and we talked about this like when we
Oh yeah,
talked
yeah. I
about the
think you
blowout.
DM me. Yeah, you DM me. I still haven't done that video.
Yeah, so for those that are listening in, I got some information from Short Slabs, Tyler Short on YouTube. Um, I know I had come across a investment fund that Blowout was invested into, which is basically like their wax, like handpicked wax. They have 50% ownership over like a $3 million fund that's like locked up. The investments are locked up over a certain amount of time, and it's all sealed wax and within their inventory. There could be just like potential for conflicts of interest, and we'll spare the intricacies of the details. But I was trying to get AAH to tackle it because I had like 2 negative videos about wax within the last month, and I'm like, I can't
I'll
continue to go
do it.
down this negative path.
I'll maybe do it this weekend. I have a bunch of videos that I'm gonna post this week when I have time this weekend. Maybe I'll touch base on the wax. How about that? I have a couple ideas. So
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Yeah, that's it for me.
all right. So yeah, Filmington. Before I let you go, where can people find you?
Philmington everywhere. That's YouTube, Instagram, and eBay.
Awesome. Make sure to check him out. He is one of the more rational people out there and makes really good content. So check it out, guys. And Phil, thanks for coming on.
Thanks.